Have you ever claimed to be from a big city that you live nearby? People usually do just because they feel that their hometown, if it's really small, has never been heard of. Whether it's like, Detroit, like big cities like Detroit, Chicago, Houston. People will usually claim those big cities because they're more well known. My name's Alex. I'm from Illinois. I'm from a suburb called Joliet, and I usually claim Chicago because nobody's ever really heard of Joliet before. Whether it's talking to somebody who's never heard of Illinois, not Illinois, but Joliet in general, or from people who are from Illinois, which have had funny stories about actually, who are like, that's not in Chicago. One story I have is when I was my first year here at Western Michigan, we were I was talking to some guy in the elevator, and he asked me, he's like, "Oh yeah, where are you from?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm from Chicago." Like I was assuming that he, was from out of state, maybe Michigan. He was like, "Oh, I'm from like Illinois too." Like where? And I was like, "Oh, like it's called Joliet." And he was like, "Well, that's not really in Chicago. So what are you talking about?" So it was kind of a funny interaction where I got like outed because he's like, "You're not from Chicago." But on the other hand, when I've been talking to teammates, I have a teammate from Canada, and she asked me where I was from, and I'm from like I said I was from Illinois. She was like, I'm from a Chicago suburb called Joliet, and she's like, "Yeah, I've never heard of it. I know where Chicago is, but Joliet I've never heard of." And it's fair; it's a small town, so I wouldn't expect anybody to really hear about it. But from some of my other teammates who are from Illinois, we kind of joke about Joliet a little bit because I'm claiming it, but it's almost like an hour drive away. But we joke about it because it's like she also kind of claims Chicago, but she's not from Chicago either, which is we're kind of the same in that way, so it's pretty funny. But yeah, usually other people I've met have claimed they're from Detroit when they're really not. I've had some instances where they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm from Detroit," and they've been added where it's like, "No, you're from like Flint or Fenton," and you're like, "That's not close to Detroit." But yeah, so I feel like it's more common for people to claim those big cities just because they are more well known. But sometimes I kind of just gotta stop assuming that they don't know where it is because you never know. You never know if they're either from Illinois or from somewhere else. They could know where Joliet is. We never know.